only 4 weeks ago, I was paralyzed with fear and anxiety, um, to the point where I couldn't function anymore. Um, I was suffering with insomnia. I would wake up during the night and I could not get back to sleep, and I would be plagued by doubts and fears that would just take hold of me. It's such an intense way that by the time morning came around, I was absolutely beside myself, fighting off panic attacks, um, completely debilitated. Um, I could be sitting here 4 weeks ago and looking around, and I would not have been able to say it was a beautiful day. Today, I can look around and wholeheartedly, honestly say and feel it is a beautiful day. I've been working on having to turn this crippling, debilitating fear and anxiety around, and I've had to develop tools, and thankfully I have found tools that really are working for me. Last night I woke up at 2 a.m. in the morning, and instead of being plagued by you know terrible thoughts and torturing myself in the dark, I found myself in a place of gratitude that I could get up and meditate on the good feelings that I've discovered and generated, and generate more of those, and focus on and form a vision for where I want to go, which is a huge difference to a month ago when I was on medication and you know fighting to keep my sanity. My thoughts were completely out of control. I had lost control of my mental state completely. So the whole purpose of this update in the human experiment, day 15-ish, is to divulge tools and techniques that I've found that are working for me to overcome this state that I found myself stuck in, to move myself into a better place. So my entire being previously had been given over to negative thought, negativity, and fears. I was struggling immensely. The condition I found myself in was a combination of struggling with guilt and regret about past choices. It was heavily affecting me, coupled with complete fear of the future and any choices that I was making towards the future, because I just completely lost trust in myself. So therefore I was afraid with any choices that I made that I was going to send myself to a worse situation, given that the choices I'd been making in the past were not fruitful. And I'd completely lost faith in myself. As I'd explained in my last video, that was from making reactive choices over a space of 4 years. You make a bad choice out of fear, and that leads you into a situation that you haven't consciously designed. It's an unconscious design, and you end up in this situation struggling, trying to change things with your head and your hands instead of altering your inner state first. And by the time that phase ends, you're in a weaker position than where you were when you started there. Bang, how am I going to undo the last, the effects of that phase? Or I'm going to make another reactive decision out of fear. So my entire being by this point had been given over to negativity. Every thought was a negative thought about myself, about my situation, which led to negative feelings about myself, my situation, constantly, till pretty much my entire inner dialogue and internal world was geared towards negativity, basically whipping myself constantly, which just completely had overtaken my present moment and my being. So after clearing the table, I decided that it was time to make a change. What would happen if I cleared the table of all these reactive thoughts and I devoted my entire being, which had previously been focused on fear and negativity, and devoted my entire being to positivity and changing my feeling states and changing my thought patterns, which when you start doing it is a big job, especially when you've been geared in the opposite direction to what you're trying to turn to, and you've got so much momentum in the negative because you've been operating there for quite some time. So the first technique I started on, because I knew that a lot of what I was dealing with was subconscious, and how do you reach the subconscious? That can be a big problem. It's like, how do I untangle this knot? There's this big ball of darkness when I look into this part of myself, because consciously I can't access it. So bit by bit, that path led me to looking into Neville Goddard's teachings and his ideas on accessing the subconscious, which is reflected in a lot of passages in the Bible, funnily enough, about how your conscious mind imprints your subconscious mind as you go off to sleep. So I cleared my plate so that I wasn't fretting and worrying as I went to sleep every night. So I cleared my plate of all the reactive decisions and choices I'd made, and blessed myself with a space of neutrality to give myself the space to start fresh with a clean slate. And then as I went off to sleep at night, I would hold the feelings of self-love or confidence or the self that I wanted to be, or just that everything was fine. I would just tell myself that everything was fine. It was a matter of just making a conscious choice to go to sleep at night feeling good and thinking positive thoughts, which, when I touched on in the previous video, you can do. In the present moment, there's nothing to validate the fact that you should be filling in the future with negative and fearful thoughts that aren't based on anything real in the moment, yet you can convince yourself that things are going to be bad. So why not come back if it doesn't require evidence to fill in your future in your mind? Come back and use that same principle to look forward and say things are going to be positive. So I would go to sleep at night either telling myself or holding a feeling state that things were fine, everything was going to be okay, or I would hold a picture in my mind of where I wanted to be and who I wanted to be until I could feel that and go off to sleep. And I honestly started to notice a difference really quickly. It can take time and it can take practice and it can affect your sleep, but I started to find I was waking up feeling lighter and feeling better. The other thing I've employed has been a morning meditation, sometimes more than one meditation, where I get up, I'm still in alpha brainwaves as soon as I wake up, and I go into a meditative space. I hold a feeling of gratitude and thanks for where I'm at, trying to look at everything that's happened as a blessing that's brought me to a place where I can really, really reset myself. So look at all these things that were perceived as losses and mistakes that I was holding guilt and regret about, which is a really low vibration, and turn that into going, hey, it's brought you to the point where you've been able to assess things within yourself that were out of control and really needed assessing. So I would hold feelings of gratitude and focus in on my current circumstances in that light. I would also use that time to visualize where I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, and start my day out that way. Other things I've found that are really working, and again have brought me to a much better place within 4 weeks. I'm feeling like a completely different person to I was 4 weeks ago. I don't need medication. I don't need anything. I don't need vices to suppress anything and keep myself feeling better. I'm just starting to enjoy myself and appreciate where I'm at. And I'm creating as many exercises as I can throughout the day to keep myself focused in that positive way. So I'm exchanging the completely, totally negative way of being I was before for a positive way of being, which is taking effort, training, retraining my mind, retraining the way I think, retraining the way I focus, but it is working. Exercise. I've set a daily target of getting up and doing a walk or a run and doing it and finishing it, because previously I was starting things, becoming paralyzed with fear that they would fail, and then that fear would just bring me undone along the way, and exiting things, and which led me to a point, because I was afraid that they would work out the way things had in the past, which was the guilt and regret that I'd been carrying. It's brought me to a place of being completely and utterly frozen and not finishing anything. So to try and subconsciously retrain myself with a sense of achievement, victory, some inner strength. It's like, okay, well, you can't win the battles of the mind straight off the bat so easily without retraining, but setting yourself a small physical goal is as simple as putting one foot in front of the other, literally, and you are starting to show yourself that you can finish something. That's been really helping me. When I'm walking, I find it really easy to tap into a feeling state and hold a good feeling state. I visualize where I want to be. I feel how that feels, and then I hold that feeling state. And from there, I can walk along after a while just giving thanks and gratitude for that feeling state and where I'm at. Another technique that works really well, I find for me, when there's movement, when I'm moving, I'm not in a state of inertia. I'm not in a state of stagnance physically. I'm moving. It's very easy for me to not be mired in whatever I've been mired in and generate a new perspective and a new feeling state while I'm in that space. So when I'm driving, I also hold these feeling states, and I hold these like I'll pretend I'm driving on an endless holiday. It's one of my favorite ones, an endless holiday where I can just stay on holiday for as long as I want. Every horizon's a new horizon. There's no financial issues and worries. The family's completely enjoying itself, and it's very easy for me to hold that feeling state while I'm driving. So these are all ways that have really, really, really helped me. And it takes focus and it takes work, but it gets easier, and it's self-rewarding. It is literally self-rewarding, because as it starts to take hold in you, you start to obviously find yourself in a better place, which is the reward that you're seeking. Life becomes, I don't need medication. I'm not waking up a nervous wreck every morning. I'm not bashing myself over the head about things I've done in the past. I'm looking at those things as blessings, and I've been able to come to a place where I'm starting to clear out things that I've been carrying for years and years and years and years. So within that, I can find a path to gratitude, because it's allowing me to really reset the foundation on myself. So yeah, anyway, these are ways that I have been combating what had turned into full-blown anxiety, fear just completely overtaking me, whether it was anxiety, worry, doubt, all of them, plus moving away from guilt and regret about past choices. And yeah, I think on a positive note, as I was saying in the previous video, if you've only just stumbled on this video, when it comes to doubt and fear and anxiety, which are all negative projections onto the future, onto what's in front of you, you don't doubt. You just accept doubt. You just assume the doubts to be founded, and that's how they're going to work out. You fill in this negative picture before you even get anywhere, and it sabotages you from even doing anything. But again, like I talked about in the previous video, that acronym for fear, false evidence appearing real, you're basing your decisions, you're literally altering the course of your life with evidence that doesn't even exist and that you don't even have yet, and then it's not materializing in the present moment. It's just in your mind. So if we are able to fill in the future with such negative faith in the fact that the worst outcomes are going to eventuate, the least favorable outcomes are always going to eventuate for you, and you don't actually need real evidence to reach that conclusion, you can just as easily alchemically transmute that into, well, if I don't need evidence and proof that things are going to turn out bad, I don't need evidence and proof that things are going to turn out good. If no evidence and proof are required, then I can just as easily tell myself that everything's going to turn out good. And that starts to completely change your inner dialogue. So I'll leave it at that. If anyone finds this and they're struggling with anxiety and fear of the future, just remind yourself that you're basing that off no evidence, off nothing. Just because things have happened that way in the past, you can't judge things that haven't even happened yet in that same light, because they haven't happened yet. Yet you're 100% convincing yourself that that's what's going to happen. So if you can alter your choices in the moment based off that, flick that switch over and tell yourself, well, I don't need evidence for that. So therefore, I don't need evidence to assume the positive. I don't need evidence to assume the positive. If I don't need evidence to assume one, I don't need evidence to assume the other. Focus on that point. Focus on that point. It starts to show you how much your mind has been tricking you, because it's got momentum in operating in one way. And when you start to focus on that, you realize the paper-thin illusion of the way you've been filling in your future, and you can start to experiment and go, hey, well, I'm going to flick that switch over and assume without evidence that things are going to be positive. It'll take work. You'll have to keep pulling yourself back over to that, but it's easy to do when you remind yourself that it didn't need evidence to swing towards the negative. So therefore, you've got nothing to lose from trying that in the positive. Yep, that's it for right now. Feeling great, going really well. Still not smoking. Sleeping better. Days are beautiful. I'm actually starting to feel really good inside myself, and it's only day 15 of my human experiment. Finding more things to be grateful for, even just being able to just for confidence, being able to talk to a camera, to yourself. It's funny, it feels, you can say, well, it feels silly, but it's just the little things. It's good for your confidence. I was able to tell myself, hey, I'm just someone with a phone, and there's millions upon millions of videos on YouTube. No one's going to see it anyway, so what have I got to lose? I'm documenting my own progress, and in 2 years I'm going to be able to look back and go, hey, that path really worked. That time was a real blessing. Look at where I am now. If anyone out there is struggling with anxiety, you have my respect. I'm not going to give you too much sympathy, because we don't need sympathy. We just need to pick ourselves up. It's totally doable. I hope this helps. I'll be back with some more updates on other things that I'm utilizing on this journey to turn myself around. Take it easy. I'll see you next time. Bye.